Can Russia win the war and occupy Ukraine? Theoretically, yes, if Ukraine's partners stop providing support. Due to the sheer number of troops, large-scale production capabilities and a stronger economy, Russia could continue its slow grinding offensive for years, until Ukraine is no longer able to defend itself. Can Ukraine win the war against Russia? Theoretically, yes. However, it's important to clarify that victory doesn't mean taking Moscow, but rather pushing the occupiers beyond Ukraine's borders. With proper support from its partners, this could be achieved. The US possesses weapons that significantly surpass Russia's, and if Washington truly wanted Russia to lose, this could be accomplished on the battlefield without a single American soldier, simply by supplying Ukraine with modern aircraft and missiles in the necessary quantities. However, the US prefers a gradual weakening of Russia, military and economically. They fear that outright defeat could lead to fragmentation and the emergence of multiple factions, each with nuclear weapons, instead of a single centralized power. Another possible scenario is the deployment of foreign troops, not even for direct combat, but to secure Ukraine's borders. Throughout its 1,000 years history, Ukraine has always faced the challenge of fighting on multiple fronts. Even now, part of its forces must defend the northern border against a potential threat from Belarus. Another portion is stationed in the west due to the Russian-occupied territory of Moldova, the so-called Transnistria. Ukrainian forces also guard the south, ensuring security in the Black Sea, preventing amphibious landings, and maintaining trade routes. If Ukraine's partners became allies and deployed troops to defend these regions, it would free up a significant number of Ukrainian forces to focus on liberating occupied territories. At the same time, these foreign troops would likely not have to fire a single shot. Russia fears such a scenario. That's why, to avoid provoking Western countries, Russia for now limits its use of North Korean forces to its own territory, in the Kursk region. Such a step could, at the very least, accelerate negotiations for a peace agreement. Theoretically, France, the United Kingdom and Poland have the military capabilities to take this step. Whether any of them will have the political will to do so remains uncertain. Draw. As of summer 2025, a Korean-style scenario seems quite realistic. That is, hostilities stop and all sides remain in the positions they currently hold. Can this be considered a draw from Ukraine's perspective, given the occupied territories? Yes, because first, military deoccupation would require resources Ukraine simply does not have. Second, for the Ukraine that has survived, European integration is finally being realized. Third, the war is being fought on multiple levels, and Russia has indeed suffered significant losses. Most of its military equipment destroyed, hundreds of thousands killed, even more wounded. Plus 2 neighboring countries joined NATO. Influence in the Caucasus, Armenia, Azerbaijan lost. Influence in the east via Syria, Iran also lost. And its ability to influence global geopolitics has been reduced. Its economy has taken massive hits, and Russia is holding on by a thread, with its reserve fund already depleted. In return, after more than 3.5 years, they've managed to capture exactly 0 regional capitals in Ukraine. So much for taking Kiev in 3 days. Therefore, yes, a truce at the current front lines can be considered a draw. Moscow knows that Kiev is open to a Korean-style scenario, and that's why it's going all in. All forces are thrown into a summer offensive. Drones are relentlessly terrorizing Ukrainian cities. The plan is to grab as much land as possible before winter. Then negotiations can begin. Europe knows Moscow is going all in and is therefore boosting Ukraine's defense capabilities. The US and China are playing their own games, maintaining the status quo. The US is distancing itself from the war while simultaneously applying sanctions and providing certain weapons, through NATO proxies but in substantial quantities, again because they too understand what's at stake. China, wherever possible, calls for peace, declares support for territorial integrity, and so on. But on the other hand, it has openly stated it will not allow Russia to lose. Not surprising. After what happened to Iran, the global geopolitical arena has only two major authoritarian anti-democratic players left, and China is not thrilled at the prospect of being the last one. After the offensive, having captured a few empty villages and some fields in the east, Russia will also be open to the Korean scenario. It will understand that its gains are minimal, its economy can no longer compete with Europe's, and there's a real chance that next year the so-called coalition of the willing might go all in.
This is tied to the 2027 French presidential election, after which Macron will no longer be president, meaning Ukraine may lose French support, and the coalition could collapse entirely. This would make the threat of Russianism to Eastern Europe more real than ever.
In short, Europe cannot allow this to happen. Moscow knows that if the coalition of the willing becomes truly resolute, say by deploying European troops in Ukraine even behind the lines or by involving European air forces, it will lose the territories it has seized. So the end of the war in 2025 in the form of a sort of stalemate is entirely possible. All the cards are on the table, everyone knows and understands everything. The only question is whether there's enough wisdom to make the right move.